Yes, I became a millionaire at like 25, 24, liquid. I was well over 10 million. But am I really a 28-year-old? Well, biologically, apparently I'm a 39-year-old. I wouldn't change a thing though.
3 weeks ago, you sent a picture in our group chat in the hospital.
Yeah.
What happened?
This is me again, like thinking politically, if this is gonna concern my investors. No, but I mean, I'm fine. So like for the past like 2 months or so, like I've been on this hardcore longevity track, from Blueprint to all kinds of other improvements in my life. And honestly, I think I've gotten really my health under control. But at some point, like 4 weeks ago, I started getting super high fever, and I was just like knocked out. First time in ever that like I was just knocked out for a whole week. And then all of a sudden, I feel like I could feel my heart like clenching. And so I called my brother. I'm like, dude, like it just does not feel normal. Like in like my 28 years, this is not something that happens when you're sick. So I'm like, should I see the doctor? And I'm like, and we decided it was the weekend, so I had to go to the ER. And so went to the hospital. They tested everything from like EKGs, blood tests, what are they called? Oh, CT scans and so forth. Yeah, ultimately the doctor said, I have myocarditis, which is like inflammation of the heart muscle. And that just means, like apparently I caught some virus the week before. It got to the heart, overstrained it, and so the heart is now inflamed, where I can't exercise for, could be anything from like 4 weeks to 6 months, super wide range. Really depends how fast I recover. And that was definitely like a wake-up call for the first time, because like as a young person, like you never think about your health, you never think about your age. And I think when it comes to age, actually, part of me doing this longevity stuff, I did an epigenetic age test, right? I did a blood test where they tell you all kinds of things from your pace of aging and your telomere length and your intrinsic age, your extrinsic age, and so forth. The good news is that, at the time, I'm only aging 0.8 years for every year. So like presently, things are good, right? But the kind of debt that I accrued in the last few years had me measure at 39 years. So essentially, even though, you could say like, wow, I'm so accomplished for a person under 30. Yes, I became a millionaire at I was age 25, 24, liquid. That's fantastic, but am I really a 28-year-old? Well, biologically, apparently I'm a 39-year-old, right? And so it's great accomplishing these things early, but that also means, hey, again, the word I'm using purposely here is I'm accruing non-financial debt, right?
So how does it feel to you right now? Do you feel regret and you will change that? Or do you think it was just a price I had to pay? Or how do you feel about that right now?
It's weird, that actually was very, I'm not an emotional person like that, but I am a deep thinker, right? So it's not that I was up in tears, but I was thinking deeply about that and contemplating that question. And I was thinking, would I do things differently? I think what I would do differently is when I first hit major levels of success. So for example, peak 2021, right? It's been almost 2 years since peak of the bull market, right?
How much money would you have had at that point?
I was well over 10 million. And at that point, I could have said, not stop, but step one, invest a decent chunk of that money. And it doesn't have to be that much. It could be a couple $100,000 and get to peak health, right? All the stuff I'm doing now, I could have done 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. On top of that, reduce the strain. Because I would imagine that a lot of the debt that was accumulated happened in the last 2 years. Why? Because there was bear market, super stressful. There was FTX. There was a lot of the other stuff going on in the firm, where if I had dialed it down a little bit, I might have an extra decade. Where I would say, and it's easy to play, Monday morning quarterback when one is like, oh, I should have, and we joked about this yesterday, where we said, it's so funny that you have these billionaires giving advice saying, oh, you need to make time for fun and relationships, and you have to chill in your 20s. I'm like, that dude got there by not doing that, right? And so it's kind of the same, where I did have some reflection. I even wrote a message to the team. I was like, because we talk about everything, right? And I was like, honestly, I wouldn't change a thing though, because 6 years ago, I was a kid with a dream, starting a firm out of bedroom, and I made it through so much shit. I made it through 2 bear markets, FTX, all kinds of collapses. Half my industry, not half, I would say 80 to 90% of my industry died in this time span. We're still here, beaten and bruised, but we're still here. And in the meantime, build whole new angles like metaverse, and honestly, we're I'm confident saying that we're one of the top leaders in that space when it comes to investing, that took sacrifices. But there does come a point where you say, okay, I made the choice to sacrifice, let's call it like based on those tests, like 11 years to get there. But is that a pace that I can continue? Well, absolutely fucking not, right? Like
yeah, I mean, you're 110 years if you do that.
Yeah, it will go really fast, right? And so now I've realized, well, I think there's a lot of choices I can make that have zero impact on the business. In fact, they might actually be beneficial.
Okay, so what would be choices that you didn't make 2 years ago that you make now? Like, what are like 3-5 simple choices that you make now or didn't make that you would do?
Right. So right at the top, the easiest one is, for example, like I cold on quit anything that is not beneficial to my body, right? So for example, I quit alcohol. I haven't had a sip in like 90 days. And it's not that I was an alcoholic. No, I was a social drinker like most people. You know, I would go to conferences, have a drink, right? I would go to dinner with friends, I would have a drink, right? So nothing crazy, but still that stuff is purely damaging. There's no benefit to alcohol at all. So why continue, right? Easy cut out.
Would you say that's the most important thing, or that's just...
I'm bringing that up first. Why? Because there are some sacrifices I had to make that, so I'll give you another one, sleep, right? So now you could say, well, because I worked so much, I didn't get much sleep, right? But those extra hours might have helped my business, right? So now you could say, well, the sacrifice helped the business. Alcohol did not help my business, right? So it's a very easy decision for anybody to make, to say, you know what? There's zero positives, cut it out, right? Other things is dependencies, right? So for example, like coffee is an easy one. It can go more aggressive with like stimulants and drugs, right? Another thing to cut out where, for example, also, I used to be somebody that drank like 10 cups of coffee a day, right? Just like it was like the natural fuel. Again, zero in the last 90 days or so. The crazy thing is I thought I need that stuff for energy, but in reality, it was fucking up my energy. I would like, you'd get boost, crash, get boost, crash, have horrible sleep because you've caffeinated to the brim, right? And then to get to the real one, it's like stuff like sleep. I've been wearing this thing, Oura Ring, for 5 years. So I've got an incredible amount of data on myself. I have, for 5 years or so, always only slept 6 hours.
Yeah, I mean, you showed us the stats, it looked terrible.
It was terrible, right? There's so much nuance that goes to this thing, Not only did I sleep too little, 6 hours, but then also my quality was so low that I had, a year ago today or so, I would get only a sleep efficiency of 77%. That means for every hour I lie in bed, I would get maybe 45 minutes of sleep. The 15 minutes would be wasted by me waking up, being awake, not falling asleep, and so forth. And now I've gotten it up to 92%.
Oh, nice.
For the same time, me lying in bed, going from 1 hour and only 45 minutes, now I'm at like 1 hour and let's call it 55 minutes.
Would you say that mental stress is also one of the bigger things that
yeah,
cause that?
For sure.
What are your most stressful moments in the last 2 years?
There's 3. One is too soon for me to talk about. The other one was obviously FTX. FTX was just a massive blow.
Yeah.
It seemed pretty existential on multiple fronts. One, from a fund level, we just lost 30% of our invested money. What happens now? Will they all leave? And also, how do I make it back, right? From an operational level, right? Like we just lost 30% of our revenues, ooh, fuck. And then number 3, since at the time, I was the biggest investor of the fund, that was also 30% of not my net worth, but a double-digit percent of my net worth, and an even bigger part of my liquid net worth. Why? Because the other part of my net worth is in the Metaverse fund, which is illiquid. And so all of a sudden, my liquidity just fucking vanished. And then I got a huge tax bill, and I realized, oh fuck, there was a very brief period of time where I had a negative liquid net worth, and I realized, we're in a bear market. I got this tax bill. My money went away in FTX. All these things happening. How do I make this work? And so that put an incredible amount of stress.
So moving forward, what are other things that you will do differently to...
Yeah, so I call it like Blueprint Plus, right? So like Brian Johnson, this billionaire that sold Venmo to PayPal, has been making a lot of headlines about his longevity plans, where he spent millions of dollars on kind of hacking his health, measuring everything, and doing these protocols. So I pretty much follow the Blueprint protocol, which from a diet perspective, like I eat only like organic, non-processed foods, very specific meals, pretty much the same meal every single day. Everything I consume is calculated, and not just from a calorie perspective, but like it's there for a reason. Everything I eat is like single ingredients, like broccoli, like shiitake mushrooms, like ginger, and like all kinds of natural stuff. There's not a single processed food in my entire diet, right? So I think that makes a huge difference. I take a ton of supplements. So like, yes, just like Brian, I take like 70 plus supplements a day.
What's your goal moving forward? Like, why do you do that? Do you have like a specific or like more specific goals?
All
in
kinds.
mind?
So in his book, which I'm actually still reading it, but there's a really cool concept. So the book's called Outlive by Dr. Peter Thiel. So there's a concept, right? Like we've heard of like longevity, right? Which means like you want to maximize how long you live. There's then also this concept of health span, which is the quality of your health, so to say, throughout the period of your life, right? So he pushes this idea of medicine 2.0 versus 3.0, where medicine 2.0 is, you live, you get older, you get sicker, and then kind of like right before you die, we start pumping medications into you and all kinds of stuff to make you live a little bit longer in a really shitty state, and then you die. So Brian Johnson thinks we will be living forever, we'll be vampires, 500 years old, right? Peter says, probably not gonna happen in our lifetime. Now, personally, I'm more in the camp that I do believe that we'll live forever, partially because of my age. Chronological age, not biological age, because apparently I'm 39, But he says, well, by following a lot of these things, we can add 10 years of life to our life. But then there's also this thing, the health span, where I say, hey, what if you can have the same energy as a 70-year-old that you have as a 40-year-old, right? And so I do it for two reasons. One, I want to live as long as possible, not just for the sake of living long, but also because I do believe within my lifetime, we will have technological scientific breakthroughs that will enable massive life extension. Ergo, it's really, really important for me to be both alive and in the best shape possible by the time that happens, right? I don't want to be frail and old when that happens. I want to protect this as much as possible so that when we get to the point of massive life extension, that it's not beyond recovery. I think that's kind of one of the main things. I also had this major shift where I thought about, the hustle and grind culture pushes you to say, I only have so much time. I need to make it in my 20s, afterwards it's too late. And I followed that mindset for the last, decade or so. Now I take this other view where I say, wow, you've got two major advantages. One, you've made it, financially to a large degree, while at the same time you're still chronologically young. The advantage now is less so pushing the financial number versus the real advantage is, what if instead of grinding like this for another 10 years and then having real bad issues? Because like I've had friends who've told me of their friends that, like in the finance world, where guys would have fucking heart attacks and die at like 35 or 40, right? I don't want that to happen. Why? Because they were on crazy stress, never sleeping. They've probably consumed gallons and gallons of Red Bull and other, powders and stuff. If that is one potential life outcome, well, I don't fucking want that. The alternative is, well, if I really master longevity now, what if I don't have another decade to do this, or 2 decades or 3 decades and then retire at 50? What if I genuinely could become like 130 years old, 120 years old, 110 years old, right? Where I still have the energy of a 30-year-old at 60. Well, that sounds a lot better, because if you know compound interest, right? The pure compound interest of my wealth by living longer and being able to compound longer is way, way, way bigger than me hustling and grinding for 3 years extra. Now that I've done it for like 75 days or so, I generally don't think that it decreases your output. In both funds right now, we're making these huge underlying infrastructure changes. Like the hedge fund is going through the biggest infrastructure change in 5 years. And I think that I very much credit part of that. And same thing with the Metaverse fund, with like preparing like a whole new system. I very much credit that to the mental clarity that I have from not just being in the hamster wheel of like, I gotta do more, I gotta do more, to I'm clear, I'm present,